Hey everybody, this is Dr. Smith from Accomplished Health and Wellness here in Lawrence, Kansas. I know I usually do like a streamy thing, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what's working best, what will work best, so I'm going to do it this way. Today I'm going to do an osteopathic technique that you can do at home. And this one, that's actually two, but they're very similar, and they're called the liver and spleen stimulation, and this is to help boost your immune system when you're ill. This isn't one that you would want to do if you have mono, okay? Don't do it then. But otherwise, you can do it if you have, and okay, maybe you don't want to do it with like liver disease, or like an enlarged liver or spleen. Don't do it with those. But otherwise you can do it. So before I go forward and show you the technique, I'm just going to kind of talk about the liver and spleen and the lymphatic system. So this is for all of you bookwormy people like me that like to know the background stuff. If you're not one of those, it's okay too. We love you. And you can just jump forward to the technique. It'll be at the end. So right now I'm going to just talk a little bit about the spleen and the liver and the lymphatics. So your lymphatic system is basically what's in your body that helps you fight infection. And so your spleen, it acts like a blood filter, and it's going to control the amount of blood that's actually in your circulation as well as the amount of blood that's stored. And it doesn't make blood anymore. It actually used to make blood, so up until your fifth month of pregnancy, so the fifth prenatal month, in the fetus, the spleen was actually making all the red blood cells. But then once you're born, then your bone marrow actually takes over in making the blood cells. In utero, you also get a lot of blood transfer between mom and baby. That's how you get a lot of the nutrients and everything. So, but up until the fifth prenatal month, the spleen was making all the red blood cells for the baby. The cool thing is that it allows healthy blood cells to actually travel through the spleen, and they aren't taken up, but the unhealthy ones or the old ones that can't be in circulation anymore, they are actually taken up by the white blood cells and then broken down, and any of the components that can be reused are going to be reused, and then everything else will just enter and be taken out of the system and digested down. The spleen also produces your immune cells that go out and fight the antigens. So antigens are what are presented to the immune cell. When bacteria and viruses are broken down, there's a protein that's presented called an antigen, and then that's what your immune cells go out and look for, your white blood cells, and they go out and look for those, your B cells, your T cells, and they look for these antigens, and then that's what will start the war inside your body against the invader. There you go. And so the other cool thing is about 25% of all of your lymphocytes are actually in your spleen at any given time. So that's quite a bit, actually. And the other cool thing is that your spleen actually can get bigger and smaller according to how much blood is needed to be stored. So if you are having like an acute bleed or something and you're needing more blood, it can store up to a cup of blood. Isn't that crazy? A cup of extra blood in your spleen. Who knew? Anyways, so we'll move on to the lymphatics and the liver. So when you think about your circulatory system, it's actually made up of both your lymphatic circulation and then also your blood vascular circulation. So both of those make up your entire circulatory system. And your lymphatic fluid actually comes from plasma components that are leaked from your blood capillaries. And capillaries are the smallest blood vessel in your body. And they're usually will have a single cell layer, and sometimes they'll have a basement membrane, but for the most part, it's a single cell layer. Your lymphatics also have capillaries, and they're called lymphatic capillaries, and they are very permeable. Their walls are made up of a single cell layer of what's called lymphatic endothelial cells. So it's just one single layer of cells. So imagine this little tiny cell, and that's all that is separating the inside from the outside. Very permeable. Permeable means that the fluid can come in and out, right? Or things can come in and out. And your lymphatic capillaries, they actually will come together and they coalesce into these things called lymphatic vessels. And your lymphatic vessels are actually covered by smooth muscle, like the small smooth muscle layer. And they're called lymphatic collecting vessels. Lymphatic collecting vessels. So these collecting vessels, they can actually be divided into smaller functional units, and they're called lymphangions. And the lymphangions actually have these bicuspid valves in them. And so before I had said that your lymphatic system doesn't have these valves. And so your lymphatic capillaries don't. But the lymphatic angions, they actually do have bicuspid valves. And bicuspid means it has two cusps, right? And so they have a unidirectional flow, meaning that all the cusps are facing one way. They open to allow the fluid to go one way, then they close and the fluid can't come back. And so between the smooth muscle that is around these lymphatic collecting vessels and then the valves within these lymphangions, they actually together will create like a pumping action to direct your lymphatic flow. But that's all that they have, is these little things, right? And so it's not like they're all over the place like the lymphatic capillaries are, but they do come into these vessels to help move the fluid. Your collecting vessels will then actually connect into one or more of your lymph nodes. So lymph nodes are everywhere. You know, sometimes you'll be like, oh, my glands, they're all swollen, they're in my neck. Those are lymph nodes a lot of the times. If they're down here, they're lymph nodes. If they're up in here, those are glands, but down here, they're lymph nodes. And back here, they're lymph nodes. You have some behind your ear. You have them everywhere. In your armpits, you know, sometimes you'll be shaving and get a little folliculitis there, a little infection in the hair, and then you'll be like, oh, I have this lump, it's so uncomfortable on my armpit. That's a lymph node for the most part. So your lymph will flow through a primary lymph node, which is like the first lymph node that drains that area. That's your primary lymph node. And then there's going to be other ones that are out after that. So then there's secondary lymph nodes and then tertiary lymph nodes. And then once they go through the tertiary lymph nodes, they actually are going to enter into the lymphatic trunk. And so your lymph from the left side of your body, your abdomen, and your lower limb is going to drain into your thoracic duct. And that is then going to drain into your left subclavian vein. Okay? The lymph from all the rest of the body is going to drain into your right subclavian vein. And then it'll return into your systemic blood circulation. And 25 to 50% of all of the lymph passing through your thoracic duct originates in the liver. So that's why we do liver stimulation, because that's where a lot of your lymph fluid is coming from. Your lymphatic flow, it's all going through your liver, so we want to pump it out, right? We want to get it back out into the system. But we also need to do the spleen stimulation because we want to pump out those immune cells, right? We want to get it flowing, and then we want to keep it flowing, okay? So that's really why you do both of these techniques. So your liver is very similar to your liver has these little bitty capillaries. They're not really called capillaries in your liver. They're called sinusoids. And so isn't that a cool name? Sinusoids. I love that. I like to say it. Sinusoid. It's weird. Anyways. So your sinusoid, so it has sinusoids instead of capillaries, but they're very similar to the lymphatic capillaries because they also have just a single layer, but these aren't called lymphatic endothelial cells because they're in the sinusoids. So they're called, guess, anyone? Yeah, sinusoidal endothelial cells. And so they're going to line these like little vessels in your liver. And the liver lymphatic fluid is actually thought to originate from plasma components filtered through these liver sinusoidal endothelial cells. So once like fluid is in the liver, or it originates in the liver and is going to be pumped out, there's like a ton of lymphatics all over your liver, right? So there's some on top of the capsule, there's some below the capsule, there's some on the concave side, and they all drain actually into different places. So some of them will go into what's called they drain to lymph nodes at your hepatic hilum, hepatic meaning liver. And then some of them will go into the posterior mediastinal node. So your mediastinum is this area, and posterior means the back. And then some of them are going to go in to your hepatic hilum and also other regional lymph nodes. And then some will just go into the mediastinal, like the regular anterior mediastinal nodes. So it goes everywhere, right? All into this, and then it's going to be pumped out. So all these things that I'm teaching you help to get the lymph flowing. So we already learned the lymphatic pump. Soon we're going to learn the thoracic pump, which is another way to get the lymph flowing because it's going to make a pump inside your body. But today we're going to do the liver and spleen stimulation. Super simple. And so I need my trusty assistant now. So she's going to come. Elsie, are you going to come? And I have to like change things just a smidge, so you can see my trusty assistant. Here she is, trusty assistant. And she's going to lay down. We'll see if we can. I have to get her raised up a little bit. Let me see. Hold on one second. Okay.
Yeah, that's my book.
My trusty book that helps me to raise
My
and
trusty book.
lower the camera that I borrow from my trusty assistant. Okay, so she's going to lay on her back.
Okay.
And so I'm going to start by, so your liver is going to be on your right side. So this is her right side. So this is her liver. She's a little ticklish. And then your spleen is going to be on your left side. And so these are actually pressure sensitive. And so if you want to stimulate them, you just have to give some pressure there, right? So I'm going to show you on her liver first, but usually, and it doesn't really matter which one you do. So they can be like this, but I don't know. I was always taught to like hold the arm out, so that's what I always do. So, so you hold the arm out like this, and then you're gonna put your palm right on the side of the ribs here, because the liver is gonna be under these ribs. And then you're gonna just do it. So I always just put it like this, right? And you're gonna do, it's very similar to the lymphatic pump. It's gonna be a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you put like, I don't know, you're maybe pushing like an inch in. It shouldn't really hurt. Sometimes I have bony hands, and so sometimes my thumb hurts. If it's hurting, you can actually just put your palm down or just move the way your hand is. however your placement is so that your hand is more flat. I always go like this, and then I try to push more up here, but sometimes with her, she's kind of touchy. So anyways, you just go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and you're literally just pumping, pushing in. It's going to make you jiggle as well. Yeah.
Making me hungry. I don't know why.
It doesn't make you hungry usually. So you just go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you just do this for about a minute. It's nothing. There's no, like, you don't need to spend all day doing this, right? So then, so when we do our liver, we're wanting to pump the fluid out because we have lots of fluid in there, lots of lymphatic stuff in there. We want to keep pumping that out, right? So then on the other side, on our spleen, so our spleen is going to be on the left side, liver is on the right, spleen's on the left. So on this side, we're doing the exact same thing. It's pressure sensitive, so it's 1, 2, 1, 2, and you can put your hand all the way down, and you're just maybe pumping like an inch. What does it feel like? Does it hurt?
No.
No, it jiggles. And you just do this for like a minute. That's all. And this is just going to basically, along with that lymphatic pump, it's going to just put this immune system in hyperdrive so that it can go out there and find all of those nasty buggers that have invaded the system and are making us feel crummy. You can even do this for gut stuff. Like if you had, if you had like the stomach virus, the stomach bug, and you're getting the diarrhea and vomit, you can actually do this for the gut because there's tons and tons of lymphatics all throughout the gut, right? And so this will actually stimulate those cells to go into the gut as well. So just so that you know, it's just another thought. Anyways, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, that's all you're going to say to yourself. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you're just going to push. It's about it doesn't hurt. It's like an inch maybe of pumping. And you do it for like a minute. See, it's like 2 minutes of your life. It's not a big deal. And then the lymphatic pump is like another minute. So right there you've only had 3 minutes and it's no big deal. No, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, and then you do the 2 different techniques on the feet.
Oh, you just do that one for a minute total.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Anyways, that is the liver and spleen stimulation. Eventually I'm going to get through all of these techniques and then I'm actually going to put them all together and show you how to do them all together. My trusty assistant is super excited about that, you guys. So, if you have any questions, like always, please ask. I am more than happy to answer questions. If you find this helpful at all, and you want to see more of my videos that come out as the weeks go by, please make sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube page. And that puts a smile on my face and my trusty assistant's face. And like I said, we will do another one next week. It won't be on a Tuesday because Heather comes back next Tuesday, so we'll get back to normal tea time videos, but it'll be like some other day in the week. I will continue to do them. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week, and to all the kiddos that are starting school this week, good luck and God bless.